Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I am Peter Hostrasser. I'm here with Allie Privet. Allie, how are you doing?
We're doing well for this beautiful September day when we're recording this.
Yes.
It's a Monday for you, okay? But it wasn't a Monday for me, and you were giving me a little trouble about being like, "Hey, how was your Monday?" Because you had to teach all day.
If you should know, I can tell you that I woke up. It was very cold and rainy, which I'm okay with. But then there was a fire in our school because they hooked up one of the heaters, and it actually, they had a little bit of dust or something in there. This was before school, by the way. And I have a buddy of mine who actually works out in the morning, and he had to go outside from there because I work out from home. And he just texted me. He's like, "I'm freezing. The school is on fire." It wasn't a big fire, but it was. So that's how my Monday started. So there you go. Allie, you can just guide your own Monday these days. So hoping we can all get there.
I actually woke up this morning and helped my grandpa pick tomatoes from the garden. And so that was a lovely way to start the week.
Absolutely. I bet they're so good. You got to make sauce. Would you make sauce with those? What do you do with the tomatoes?
What don't we make with those tomatoes? Pasta sauce, can the tomatoes, tomato soup, tomato frittata, tomato casserole, I don't know, all the things.
So now you're making our new guests hungry. His name is Noah Schell, and Noah is with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Noah.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm a senior in high school this year, so I'm 17 years old. I'm a big Cardinals fan, and I'm hoping that we can make that playoff push and do well this year. Outside of school, I have a job. I teach math, which I really enjoy, and I also play piano, and I'm a member of the orchestra, so I really like music. And I just enjoy spending time with friends and family and my dogs and pets and all kinds of stuff. So
Noah is really downplaying himself right now here. So let me give a little bit more
Previous
depth.
teacher alert here.
Yeah, so okay. Everyone should know Noah is a former student of mine. I was lucky to have him in honors chemistry during the craziest year we ever had, the school year that was 2020 to 2021. And so beyond, where you're from and the things you like to do, Noah, you are one of the most deepest thinkers, but you also are a student that you can really get into your learning, but you can always take it back to a bigger picture. And so when we're talking about education here on this podcast and this series that we're doing, which is called, Going Beyond the Score and Connecting Academia to Reality, instantly I thought of you as somebody that we should have to explore, you're in this system right now as a student, and you had a very interesting 4 years of high school, right? To say the least. Sure. So I guess I want to open it up with, what is something that you do when you think about your educational experience that kind of what do you think about your educational experience? I guess that's where I'll start, because I've always wanted to ask you this question since podcasting with Peter, is for someone like you who's had this crazy high school, journey in a public school, what do you think of your educational journey, and, how do you get the most out of it?
Well, first, thank you for your kind words. Those are all very nice things. In terms of my educational journey, I like to always have frame my mindset with some sort of goal or end light at the end of the tunnel kind of in mind. And sometimes, that can be where I want to be after high school, a college I want to get into or apply to, or more often than not, it's just the idea of I'm here to try and learn something that I can apply to my life and take to, work or my home life with my family and friends, problem solving. I try and take anything that I can from school and go beyond just being able to pass the test, which of course I do study for all of that, and I do want to do well in school. But I think the most valuable thing that I've learned throughout my educational journey has been how to problem solve and analyze, and how to just break things down and then take them where I need to, depending on the situation.
I love how 17-year-olds are always very humble. That's Number one, that is just like if I could get every student to think that way, like light at the end of the tunnel, something to, kind of apply to their life and see the bigger picture rather than the immediate piece. That's very interesting. I am very curious on how did you get that mindset?
Um, it's kind of came out of necessity because there are a lot of school days where I'm there and it's early in the morning and I went to bed too late the night before and I honestly like just want nothing more than a nap, and it's like really difficult to get through certain classes, or if even if the work that I'm doing I just don't feel like is super applicable, or it just kind of seems like busy work. It's really challenging. So I kind of was forced into, from the school day that I'm in and in the way that my school operates, kind of forced into having that mindset just so that I don't like go insane. And so I try and like set big picture goals, but also just like little things for each day. Like if it's something like just packing my lunch so that I have something to eat throughout the day and I'm not, just miserable throughout the school day, or if it's getting enough sleep or just finishing even half of the assignments that I need to, like having something to just kind of work towards and to frame whatever school day that I have with is has been really helpful for me. And that's a mindset that I've had developed for myself and always continue to work on. But I've been super lucky to be surrounded by incredible people at school, like Allie, Miss Privet, and like my other teachers and friends and peers from throughout the building who have been able to support me, and we can help one another, which has been really helpful for creating that mindset that I've been using lately.
Okay, a couple of things that I like as I'm hearing your answers and everything. I'm thinking like, okay, no, you're not like most students. Okay, you're just not. And your course load is crazy. So when you're sitting there thinking like, oh, busy work and stuff. From what I understand, you have a full loaded AP class load this year, and you continually push and challenge. Like I can remember conversations from 2 years ago where you were like mapping out and you're like, I don't know if I have room for AP chemistry as an example, because you gave me like a list of maybe all of these other classes that you wanted to take. And so what I'm wondering, because you are so methodical in your thinking, and is like, how do you make those decisions, when you're in a system, right? Like how do you choose, like your route, not just like for college, but like how do you balance, like you have a lot of varied interests, right? Like you're musically talented, you're mathematically intuitive, science oriented, you have all these different areas that you're interested. So how do you balance that with your desire to learn?
So that is a continual process that I'm working to improve in. The most important thing that I've come to realize way too late in my educational journey is just like simple time management. Being able to make room in my day for all of those things has been very challenging and something I'm still working towards. But in terms of like how I decide what classes I'm going to take or what interests I'm really going to pursue, there's a variety of factors that can influence my choice there. Unfortunately, sometimes I kind of do like just try and play the system. Like I know what schools I want to end up in. I know that like I want a higher GPA, test score, whatever. And so I have taken classes and joined clubs and whatever just for the sake of like checking the box and putting it on my resume. Awful decisions that I've made, something that I regret, and I've, just like I'm working towards making choices that I would make regardless of whether or not I was in this system. Other than that, I guess I'm kind of lucky because my interests align pretty well with like what school I don't know wants me to take, kind of like I really love math a lot, and I really do like science and computer science and like that like analytical thinking. And so it's been easy for me because my school offers a ton of classes where I can use that mindset. So it's been I haven't had I haven't run into a problem that I see with my peers where they have a lot of interest in a particular field, but then school doesn't support that as much as they would some of the more like core subjects or something like that, which is sad for me to see. But I do feel lucky and grateful that I've been able to align my interests, and I just kind of lucked out a little bit in that way.
The self awareness you have is amazing, especially at your age. And you mentioned something about realizing how to game the system a little bit, know when to check the box and know when to go deep. And you also mentioned, friends who may not have the exact same interest. If you are analytical and you are a problem solver, and if that's your thing, you're right. Like, that's basically the major parts of STEM, and how to go deep into those courses. You're also an orchestra and have some other different aspects of life that you're interested in, and how do those come into play into your education in your educational path, and would you like them to come into maybe an academic sense more?
I don't know if I really want some of my interests to go into more of an academic sense, but I do want them to be more accessible in my like educational journey, like throughout the school day or curriculum or something like that. So I'll take orchestra for an example. In my school district, every third grader plays the violin. It's required. And then from fourth grade and up, you can choose if you want to continue doing that, or you can switch to viola, cello, bass, a different instrument. And then eventually they offer band and they offer all kinds of different things. So that is nice. So I started playing violin when I was in third grade because my school district required it. And then I kind of just stuck with it because to be honest, I didn't want to do the alternative in my elementary school, which was like learn how to type class. And so I was like, I'll just keep this violin thing. And then I kept orchestra in my schedule. I was like, yeah, I kind of good at this and it's not terrible. So I kept it. And now I just love it. Like throughout the years, I've learned to fall in love with classical music in general. I listen to a lot of symphonies and concertos and stuff in my free time. It is a lot of fun. And I picked up the piano as well, and music has become a big part of my life. And where I see that in my education is me learning more about myself. Like music is the outlet for me to get away from like the method and like analytical aspects of math and science and computer programming and whatever, and I can just like express myself artistically, not worry about any solutions or problems, but rather just like take whatever emotions I have within me and express them through music. And I have friends who do that through writing or through art or sports or whatever. For me, it's music. And so what I kind of wish I would see a little bit more of in my school is emphasis on being able to have some emotional intelligence too, and to learn about yourself and your emotions, how to express that artistically, or have some sort of outlet so that you don't, like I see oftentimes, and like I've been there too, kind of just bottle all of these feelings that you have up about being overwhelmed with schoolwork and whatever, into a point where you just get stuck and it's very discouraging to try and continue. So that's kind of the role that music has played in my life, is keeping me out of that, giving me an outlet, and I've been really thankful for that.
Peter kind of asked this, and it was in one of your other answers, and just kind of hearing you talk about, how, the role that music plays, right? So we talked about being in the system and playing the system, like in school, and right, like there's really no shame in that at all. Like you shouldn't feel guilty about gaming, your journey within the confines of what you have to work with. What I'm wondering, Noah, is, if you could kind of, see different ways for learning, or like if you could think about how education could be different, like how, even though you're in a very traditional school model, like what are elements that you see that model missing, that if you could kind of redesign it, what would be some things that you would change?
Oh man, where to start? I feel like there are all kinds of different solutions or like potential things that we could try. One thing that I see in a lot of classrooms that has been kind of bothering me more and more lately is opportunity for students to speak, like literally to talk out loud. Something that I've been introduced to as I started tutoring math and working with like younger kids who are learning new stuff, it has like totally reframed how I think about learning for myself because I'm like more aware of what's going on. And something that I found is it, of course, this kind of depends on like person by person basis, but for I would say a majority of people, it's really hard to like code a concept in your head and like solidify something and really consolidate material and then master it without speaking out loud and explaining it to even to yourself. I've started like talking to myself when I do homework and whatever, and I'm like a crazy person in my house just like talking about physics or whatever in my room. But it really does help, and I don't see that in any of the classrooms. It's my classrooms are pretty like, there's a teacher and they lecture and then we do homework or an assignment or whatnot. But I don't see enough space for someone who is like an auditory processor to be able to speak, which I think would be really important. So that's something that doesn't really, I don't think would change like the structure of a school day or the classes that are required or anything about the system in a major way, but I do think that that would really improve student experiences and learning in general kind of across the board.
I'm going to push on this a little bit more. So if you could dream up like your dream school day, okay, what does it look like? What does it like? What would you do? What would you study? Like, forget I have to go to period 1, 3, 5, 7. Like, what would you do if you could more direct your learning and explore topics that, like, yes, you're in these traditional systems, but like when you think about what do you need to be successful moving forward, what are some things that come up?
If we are like totally redesigning the school system, that's a challenging task. But okay, I know that I would get rid of all tests. I would get rid of all tests and probably I would get rid of the way that we grade currently. I do think there is some value in like having a measure of your success in a course. I just think the way that we define success in a course is pretty bogus. So I would get rid of all tests and change everything to be I want to say like more interactive and cooperative, where instead of taking notes for the sake of doing well on a test, you're learning a concept and then applying it and then solidifying that concept as you learn another thing. How that would look with each subject is really tricky. I mean, that is a very challenging thing to try and tackle, but I'm thinking if there's a way to learn concepts and then apply them in the community, like outside of school, or more projects or something like that. I don't know. It's challenging, but I think I would want no tests. I would significantly reduce the amount of like lecture note-taking things and significantly increase cooperation, like interpersonal, whatnot, and kind of get rid of a lot of like the busy work stuff that is only needed for within the school system. If there's something that's happening that doesn't really serve a purpose outside of school and it's not going to be used, get rid of it. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I think you're absolutely hitting a lot of what we've been talking about, which is pretty amazing, Noah, that you're thinking about this. Yeah, it is challenging. It's been done in smaller ways, and we've talked about like Iowa Big and a couple of other school systems that have created partial areas where students can bring together their ideas to a community challenge, and usually it's around junior senior year in the traditional system when they do it, and they build something that is a solution or a possible solution to one of the community's challenges. It could be anything from irrigation to construction to city planning, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty. I don't know. That's upper level, man. It is possible, and I really like the fact of that. I had to ask: are you on a block schedule, or are you on like an 8-period day? Where you're
I'm
at?
on a block schedule.
On a block schedule. Okay. I honestly, there's a lot of schools that aren't even on that, where I think that leaves some, man, I'm sorry if you have some educators who aren't letting anybody speak in class on a block schedule. It's a long time to sit and be quiet, man. So,
Yeah,
but
and
I feel that
that's
too.
maybe a bit of an exaggeration.
No,
But
no, it's
I
good though. I mean, I get it. I have classes myself where the kids are, I mean, the learners are all just quiet, and I'm like, talk, go ahead, you guys can. And it's difficult because sometimes they've been burnt out all the way to the fact that they know how to check off the box and do those things. One thing you said earlier, which is very interesting, and I get it a lot from younger learners, is time management. Should that come into play? Should that be an academic class? What do you think about that? And because we kind of like throw everybody to the wolves, and then we have maybe a few like people around if you go see your counselor, or you might have like, you know, an IEP or 504 that your parent helped you out with, and not everybody has that. What do you think? Where would time management and the learning of that come into play in your awesome school idea, which I love?
It's got to be an important piece, right? Time management is a like universal skill that I think is very important for really any progress. I don't I'm hesitant to think that it would have to be its own class. In my experience, when skills like time management or something along those lines are tried to be taught in its own like quote unquote class setting, the students kind of like roll their eyes and are like, oh, we got to do this like like self-improvement stuff again kind of thing. And it's just like it's hard to get into it because it seems so cheesy, and it's like whatever, everyone kind of just blows it off, in my experience at least. But I think that time management is something that can be learned, like kind of like a learn as you do it kind of thing. So within whatever classes you're taking, or whatever assignments or like projects or whatever you have to accomplish, to be able to time manage is something that should be implemented through that, I think. And I think that how that should look in a school setting is if all of the teachers are on board and like weave time management into the lessons and into the content. That way it doesn't have to be its own separate thing. We just would that way view time management as like part of whatever it is that we're learning, so that we can do that. I think another thing that would be helpful is if just like a little bit more flexibility across the board with, like we have to realize that like students are busy, right? And so I think if we can make deadlines a little more flexible and dynamic to student needs, that can kind of help us learn to time manage at the same time. That way, we can prioritize things like sleep and eating enough food and time with family and friends and, stuff like that.
So you're in the process of choosing what happens after high school. And part of this series is exploring, like different options for college or the workforce, or just the variety, right? There's traditional models like, 4-year college or community college and whatnot. But considering, so I'm going to preface this also with, right, you kind of got on like get rid of tests and allow a little more flexibility. And this is coming from someone, I want it to be clear, this is coming from someone who is one of the best test takers out there, okay? Like, and Noah won't say this, but he has a perfect ACT score, okay? And so you're very humble, and, I know you don't brag on yourself in this kind of way, but it's interesting hearing that come from you, from a student who is a very good test taker, right? And so you're like, just naturally, or you've developed that skill, et cetera, like you're good at that aspect. So now that you're transitioning into a new phase of your learning journey, right? You're going to college soon. What are you looking for beyond, right? Like on your resume, like you're not just a score. So like, what do you look for in a learning environment that reflects like what you want in that next phase?
You are right that I am a good test taker, and that those are, like I have learned how to operate pretty well within the system. What I don't think is true is that tests are always a measure of learning and a reflection of what you've learned. And I kind of Miss Privet, you might not like to hear this, but some of the tests that I scored really well on in your class was kind of like in one ear, out the other, you know? Like there is content where, like today, I took a quiz and I scored very well on it. But if you asked me any of the questions about what was on the quiz right now, I could not tell you the answers. And the reason for that is because I am good at like memorizing things for 30 minutes and then it's out the other ear. And of course, there are things that I can remember and study, and like that's, kind of my choice about whether or not I want to learn in a class or if I just want to get a good grade in the class. So when I take that to, what I want next and where I want to end up at school and what I want that experience to look like, I'm kind of accepting that there's probably going to be tests, and that's okay for me because I've been a good test taker so far. But what I want more than that is an opportunity to take what I've learned, to take the content, maybe like whatever math that I learn or like a theorem or whatever physics that I learn, and actually be able to do something with it. If the ceiling of the measure of my learning is a test, then that's not gonna cut it for what I'm looking for, right? I want to problem solve and do things to help people and to make cool stuff and apply what I've learned in some way, shape, or form. So that could be like research, or it could be like internships or something where the university or college that I end up at is supportive of students not just doing, quote unquote, well in a class, but taking what they learn and going out into the world and doing stuff with it instead of kind of like sitting in our own little like academia bubble where we just say, oh, look at this grade I got, kind of thing.
I really like that because when you just dropped that bomb, Allie had no idea. And like all of a sudden my perception changes, right? And it shouldn't. Like I get it, Noah. Like I'm like, wait, what? Like, and then your mind starts, and as an educator, you're like, wow. And then you're like, but what do you have to show for it? Like, and so I feel like your inner kind of the learning moments, like, okay, yeah, all right, that's great. And I love the fact that you just threw Allie under the bus there. Like, this test sucked. No, I'm just kidding. But actually we do that, we do check for a quick understanding in the experiences.
And I should say that I did actually learn a ton from Miss River and in her class. Like I am not trying to just like you were a wonderful.
She just said some, not all. It's okay. We got it. We take breaks on tests too. We throw some light curveballs out there. Leave a hanging curveball and so it's just hit the baseball speed.
In the grand scheme of things, her class was one of the best that I've
But yeah, I mean, it is interesting because I really kind of started to think about myself, like, why am I thinking this way, right? And then you were talking about experiences and such. Going forward, you kind of described a little bit about how you want to learn even more in the next level of learning and understanding. How you can actually, you say experience a lot, and I love that word. Like, how do you experience things? How else have you kind of figured ways out in your out of school time to problem solve and to do kind of things on you talked a little bit about, being an orchestra and understanding and falling in love with that, but around your other interests and the time that you have, because we know that time is extremely limited. How have you used some of that problem solving? Have you figured out, even just on your own, to work to create experiences around problem solving and applying what you're learning to life?
I think there's all kinds of opportunities for myself and for everybody to kind of be able to apply that mindset of problem solving to every day. So for me, a great example is right now I'm in the process of moving. My dad got engaged last month, and we're buying a house and moving into that with everybody. And so we're kind of presented with this task, right, of taking all of our possessions that we've had in this house and moving it far away. And so the same way that I would approach like a problem in one of my math classes. Like I figure out what my goal is, and then I break down the information that I have, and up, in math I apply whatever concept or formula, whatnot. And with moving, the way I think that looks is like I break down this task of moving into subtasks, right? And then we can like divide and conquer whatever needs to be done. And then before you know it, all our stuff is in boxes and we're moving across, wherever. Another way that I've been able to kind of take that mindset into my own life is through like camps that I've done, and these are kind of academic, but not through my school. So I've had camps that I've done where there are like no tests and we're just kind of learning things and like building robots and stuff. And those have been some of the like most awesome learning experiences that I've had, right? Because it's super low stress, a lot of fun, and you learn a lot while you're doing it. So, in programs like that I've been able to participate in, I see that as well. At work, like conflicts come up with scheduling and with time and whatnot. People have a rough day, and people get upset with one another at work, kind of thing, and so like we can take that, what the like portable skills that we get from school of being able to talk to people about a problem and solve it, and apply it to different concepts. And honestly, I kind of think that's, or different experiences in life. Honestly, I think that's kind of the most, that's the biggest purpose that I see school having in my life right now, because I take a lot of classes where I learn some cool and, kind of like in-depth concepts and whatnot, and that's all nice and dandy until the summer happens, and then I forget half of the things I learned, and it's kind of like, well, what was that for? And for a while I didn't see a purpose in that, but looking back I do, because rather than the content that I learned being my main focus in that class, the process of learning and getting to know myself better about how I solve problems and how I learn is what I've really gained from classes and where I've gotten at in school so far. So because of that, I feel I feel normally somewhat comfortable, at least in like approaching a problem and learning what I need to about it to be able to tackle whatever it is.
What you just said is something that you may or may not remember me saying all the time in my classroom, is that the whole purpose of my class is to get you to think about your thinking and to get you to process this information, whatever the information comes into your life, to be able to problem solve your way through it, which is why, the chemistry class that you took for me had just prolific amounts of problems that you had to solve, because it didn't actually matter whatever the problem on the page is. And that's something that Peter and I talk about a lot with being educators and trying to, disrupt education within the confines of, whatever box that we're in. But like, how can we move learners forward? How can we, push those in front of us beyond whatever the curriculum is that, we may or may not, whatever the mandate is on the teacher side of things. So it's interesting to hear a student's perspective, though, of the educational system. And because you're very metacognitive, then you think about your thinking so much. And that's why we really wanted your insight, as a student right now, going, through the journey. Like, what do you think about education and how do you apply it and everything? So thank you so much for your perspective here. Peter, what are your kind of final thoughts as we're wrapping up this episode?
I've talked to a lot of successful young people who are just beyond like college, and they have that same conceptualization of learning that you have. Like they understand the fact that how to actually attach it to the light at the end of the tunnel, using your words, or a bigger moment in their life, and then everybody goes back, I wish I knew this earlier in life, because that is that. But and it is amazing to just hear you speak about that, and to speak about going beyond the score, if you will. Well, with that being said, and kind of a last quick question here, if you had something to say to your younger self and or peers in high school when they walk into high school or even middle school to start like thinking a different way, what would be, and this is very hard because I'm going to give you like one piece of advice. I mean, maybe a couple things that you would give somebody who's like 13, 14 years old going into kind of a new level, if you will, of systemic education.
Honestly, I would just say to do your absolute best to enjoy and find some piece of good in every single day. And I think that if we can take that mindset and aim to be just like 1% better each day, that a lot of growth will happen. I think the process of learning to problem solve and being prepared to enter into, the world or whatever, will kind of come naturally if we just let ourselves go through the learning journey and just experiencing new problems and things like that. My hope is that it can come naturally. So I think that if we can all just be a little more conscious about enjoying the time that we have with one another and the memories that we have to make for me in high school right now, but for wherever anybody is, then I think that can just lead to a lot of life satisfaction and a lot of really great memories and moments with one another that are really.
Wow, Noah, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. There are so many pieces of this podcast that I'm going to be sharing with so many different people because of your wisdom and knowledge, and actually just more importantly, your experiences. And you called out Allie on her test, which is awesome. But thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And for Allie Privet, I'm Peter Hostrasser. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next time on Disrupt Education.